But you didn't read the clause. Then they try to tell you that it's all a conspiracy, and that prevents the masses when I speak the truth from hearing me. Georgia Guidestones, Agenda 21, 5G, vaccines, AI, nanotechnology, GMO foods, water fluoridation, systematic racism, pagan observation, Planned Parenthood, outer space in that globe model, big pharma, LGBTQ role models. It's an agenda. We trapped up in this cage. We all playing parts. This whole world's a stage. Shalom, family. It's your boy Solemn Prophet with another video. Now, before I get into it, full disclaimer, we're gonna talk about some controversial topics today. So if you easily offended, I don't know if this is the video for you. But with that said, for those of you guys who like to talk about the truth, no matter how it makes you feel on the inside, come on in. Be sure to like, comment, share this video, and subscribe to the channel, because that's the only way that the algorithm gonna push our videos out so the masses can get the message. All right. So I appreciate you guys. So a few weeks back, I saw a Facebook short video. It was this guy named Matt Walsh. I didn't know his name at the time. I just saw this man and he was talking to a transgender individual, and he was asking them questions about womanhood, about being a woman, right? And so I was like, seemed interesting, so I tuned in. It was only about a minute and a half long. And they had an exchange back and forth. And then finally, you know, the Matt, his name is Matt, he ended up, you know, kind of giving this beautiful soliloquy. That's the way I could explain it, on actually his take and his understanding of the whole like transgender movement, right? So I was like, wow, he handled himself very well in that situation. So fast forward to today, and I come across another Facebook video, but it's not him talking to someone else, it's just him by himself talking. And so he's going on about a movie that he actually shot addressing the same or similar topic that he did in that previous video. So I listened to that video, and then I went ahead and watched the movie. Now, I'm gonna share that movie with you guys today, and probably give a little bit of commentary after the movie's over. But before we get started in the movie, and by the way, he goes across the country asking different experts in various fields, asking normal everyday citizens like you and me on the street their perspective. And then he's going to different avenues, and like I said, he's traveled all across the country. He even went abroad. Okay, asking the question, and the center of this video or this movie is, what is a woman? And he wants to get the answer, right? Because me and him, although I don't know what his theological affiliation is, he seems like a very logical person. So I don't know if he's any type of religion or believer or anything like that. But on a topic of transgender, especially in regards to children, I think me and him, we share a very similar understanding, right? Because although I'm very biblically based, I have a very biblical mindset. However, I'm a very logical individual, a rational and logical individual, right? So I appreciate the sciences and things of that nature. To me, science is just trying to figure out what the Most High has already created and put into place, right? So you're just trying to figure that out, right? So topic of transgender, what are my views, right? What are my views? What is my perspective? Obviously, I come from a biblical perspective. So clearly, if you see in the text, in the scriptures, we know that, you know, the Most High created male and he created female, right? So male, female, you're either one or the other. You're born one, you can't be both, okay? So with that being said, right, male and female, if you feel like you are the opposite sex, the opposite gender, and they'll go really deep into gender versus sex and stuff like that in this video. So I'm not trying to say things that are going to be echoed in the video. I'm trying to just do something completely separate and give you guys my own just organic commentary, right? But I feel like if you feel that you're something else, the fact that you feel it, okay, does not change the reality that you are whatever sex and gender that you were born as. Right now, there are medical, I wouldn't say a miracle, but I'd say medical situations, medical complications in which, you know, a uterus, a fetus isn't fully developed, or it overdevelops and it has like a genitalia, even though it, you know, has eggs and stuff. And there's medical and scientific terminology for those, but those are very far few and in between. But for the majority of us human beings on this planet, you're either born a male or you're born a female, right? So if you feel like you're something else, I could say I feel like I should have been born an owl. That doesn't mean I'm gonna grow feathers, and it doesn't mean that I can hoot and I can fly, right? You're looking at me, I'm standing before you right now as a man, okay? Regardless of how I feel, I can't change the fact that I am not an owl. Now, I can identify as an owl all day, and I can walk around and hoot and stuff like that. If that's my reality, if that's my feeling, then okay, cool. However, I cannot force you to accept, they call it affirm, right? Of affirmation. I can't force you to accept and affirm that I am an owl just because I claim to be, just because I said that I feel like I am on the inside, or that I identify as an owl. And that's the problem, right? Men are identifying and feeling like they are women. And so they're going through this physical and mental process of trying to bridge the gap and convert over to the opposite sex. And they're literally mutilating themselves. They're literally mutilating themselves. They're stuffing themselves full of drugs and hormones and all types of harmful pharmaceutical drugs that are hurting the body. And nothing is being addressed. Like, nobody is addressing the mental stability, the mental health of these individuals. But as a society, what we've instead have done, we have created this movement of inclusion and an acceptance, and we want to make them feel included with the rest of us. So we've pushed so hard to not only make them feel accepted, but to make their claims feel valid. And it's gotten to the point now where if you're just being a rational individual, you are now demonized and called all of these different names, your cancel culture and all types of stuff, because you're simply stating facts. If you were a woman, you were born with breasts, you was born with a vagina, right? You are a woman. You may feel like you are a man. You may identify as a man, but the fact remains that you are a woman. You may cut your hair. You may surgically remove your breasts. You may surgically alter your vagina. You may, take hormones and testosterone, right, to try to make your voice deeper. You may go through surgical procedures to try to remove the appearance of the Adam's apple, right? You may do all of these different things, but scientifically, you are still, and genetically, you are still, biologically, you are still a woman, and vice versa. If you're a man, you can surgically remove your penis and convert it into a vagina. You can get breast implants, right? You can get long hair. You can do makeup and nails and all of these things. You can try to make your voice lighter. All of those things. You try to be more flamboyant and feminine in your movements and in your actions and all of those things. You could even get to the point where you have done so much stuff that the average man could look at you and not know that you are a man because of all the effort and the money and stuff that you've invested in your transition. But you are still a man. You are still a man. You cannot carry a child. You cannot give birth. You cannot bring life into this world in the way that you are trying to identify as, right? There's nothing you can do about that. You may identify, deep down, you may feel like you're a girl or a woman, I should say. But the fact is, you're not, right? A plug in a wall. Something needs to be inserted into it, right? Now, the cord that goes into the wall, that is the insertion device, right? You insert that into the wall. If you get two wall plugs, both need to be inserted, and you put them together, you don't get a connection. If you take two plugs, two cords that do the insertion, right, and you put them together, you don't get anything. You have to do one with the other. It just doesn't make sense, logically speaking. Now, with that being said, I mentioned the whole thing about the impact on our children. It's absolutely despicable. These people are delusional. And the things that they're doing to these children, and I'm gonna be real, I'm not even well versed on the topic, right? A lot of that falls into like political aspirations, and I don't have any of that. I don't deal with politics. So a lot of it I keep at bay. But the things that filter through and the information that I do get, I'm just like blown away, right? In this video, I learned a lot. I didn't know the extent that some of these hormone, what they call puberty blockers and different things like that, the effects of some of these medications and the harmful effects that it has on the body. And we're willingly giving these to children. Now, I have 3 kids, right? And my youngest kid is 6. And at 6 years old, he is developing a personality. He is developing who he is as an individual, but he does not have a grasp on reality to be able to make lifelong, life-altering, life-impacting decisions at 6 years old. And they're saying studies show that some of these decisions in terms of transitioning your gender can be as early as infancy. That's crazy. You can't trust your kid to make life-altering decisions for themselves in all of these other aspects. Why would you trust your kid to make those decisions for their gender? They don't even know what they want to do in the next 3 months, let alone what they want to be for the rest of their life. And when I say that, I don't mean that kids are incapable of making a decision. What I am saying is that as parents, we are supposed to be there as a buffer between the negativity from the outside world and our child. And so we let things filter through that we find as parents that are adequate for our children's well-being. And so if we are allowing them to make these decisions, or there's cases where these parents are making decisions for their children. They're adopting kids, they're having kids, and they're saying, oh, you're a boy, but I want you to be a girl. And then they're raising these kids to be the opposite sex. That's crazy. That's inhumane. That is child abuse. Yeah, that's child abuse. It's so many different things. So, I don't want to get on my soapbox too long. What I will do is I'll play the video, come back real quick, get some closing commentary, and you guys can be on your way. But big shout out to Matt, man. In today's cancel culture, the things that he's doing is pissing off a lot of people. It's pissing off a whole lot of people. And to be honest, I have a lot of respect for him. I don't know him personally. I don't know what his beliefs are. I don't know what kind of, character he has as an individual. All I can speak to is from what I've heard and what I've seen and how he's demonstrated himself in the few video encounters that I've been able to watch of his. And so far, I can tell you that the brother brave, man. The brother is brave, and I can respect what he's doing. If nobody else is going to stand up as a man, as a husband, as a father, you need to stand up, and that's what he's doing, regardless of the lash back that he gets, all of the hate mail and everything. He's out here doing it. So shout outs to you. Share this video. I'll even put the link that I found the video at and in the description, and you can share that as well. A lot more people needs, whoever comes up with the video, right? But this information needs to get out there. They're suppressing this. They're suppressing logic. They're suppressing common sense. They're suppressing human rights. They're suppressing your ability to be able to speak on things that you were born as, right? So we got to get that. We got to get it out of here. Appreciate you guys. See you in a few.
Being a dad is one of the great privileges of my life. Give my son a BB gun, and that's just about all the emotional support he needs. My daughter, on the other hand, I've heard people say that there are no differences between male and female. Those people are idiots. I'm a husband. I'm a father of 4. I host a talk show. I give speeches. I write books. I like to make sense of things. But making sense of females is a whole other matter. Even astrophysicist Stephen Hawking, who could come up with a theory on black holes, was completely dumbfounded by women.
Women. They are a complete mystery.
And now our culture is telling us that the differences between girls and boys don't matter. That if you identify as something, then you are that thing. How do we help our kids make sense of this when they're bombarded with conflicting messages about gender and identity? Forget trying to figure out women. The real question is, what is a woman?
As you grow, your body changes from that of a young girl to that of a woman. Soon, Molly will be a young woman, having dates, going to dances in lovely romantic dresses.
The boy's shoulders are broad and his body muscular, while the girl's body is more curved.
I'd like to know more about different kinds of hormones.
Presence of these hormones in the blood brings about many changes in the bodies of both boys and girls.
Being a woman is one of the things I like best about myself. I think you'll like it too.
I like to come out here to think. Nature seems to always tell the truth, even when we don't want to hear it. Truth is, I'm not very good at fishing. But what is truth? Is there a truth? Is this what progress looks like? Can my boys really become girls? Do I have 4 daughters? Do I now have to pay for 4 weddings? Is there a son trapped in my daughter's body? If so, how do I get him out? Are any of my kids who they claim to be? Who are these people? Who am I? I better see a therapist.
In the state of Tennessee, I'm a licensed marital and family therapist. which basically means I've been trained up to think about like systems, family systems, how we were raised up, how that shapes who we are today.
So on your website, if you'll bear with me,
Sure.
Quoting, you say, I use a combination of approaches in my therapeutic work, including anti-oppression, feminist, and narrative frameworks. I rely deeply on systems theory and understanding that individuals are products of and in dialogue with our surroundings, including our families, broader culture, workplaces, nature, and political climates. What does that mean?
Yeah, so thinking about the modalities that I use, I'm definitely informed by like feminist family therapy, and the idea is that we live in gendered worlds where there are certain imperatives that are placed on us about who we are and what we do based on how we've been gendered. From the minute I was assigned female, I was told, okay, these are the kind of clothing that you're going to wear, these are the kind of the type of play that you're going to engage in as a child, the path that maybe your life will take because of social expectations.
What do you mean by assigned female? Who assigns female?
Yeah, so most times people, when they're born, they're assigned a gender
By the doctors.
Yeah.
What do they base that assignment on?
So basically, it's based on genitalia. So people looking at genitalia and deciding, okay, this is a girl or a boy. And we know now that that sex and gender are so much more than just this binary. Some women have penises, right? Some men have vaginas. That's not how gender works.
How do we know that? How do we know that that's not true? Where did we learn that from?
Yeah, well, I learned that from hearing from transgender people who've said, like, oh, I'm a trans woman, and just because I happen to have a penis, right, that doesn't mean that this is like who I am as a person, or that genitalia doesn't equal gender. Who they are, their gender expression, that, yeah, a trans woman is a woman.
With the fluidity of these things, how do I know if I'm a woman? You know,
That's a great question.
I like scented candles, and
Yeah.
I've watched Sex and the City.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
so how do I know?
Yeah, Matt, that question right there, like that question is like when it's asked with a lot of curiosity, right? That's the beginning of a lot of people's like gender identity development journeys.
If my mom who gave birth to me is a woman, and my wife is a woman, though I haven't asked her, maybe I should. But if they're all women, and also the boy who sits down with you and says, I think I'm a girl, actually is one, then what is a woman?
Yeah. Great question. I'm not a woman, so I can't really answer that.
I thought therapy would make me less confused. Am I the only one feeling this way? I need to hit the road and find out. We're talking about gender in society. Let me start with a real basic question. What is a woman? I don't want to assume, but you guys are all women?
Yes, we're women.
So how would you define it, like in the simplest terms?
That is hard.
Yeah, it is. It is a stumper.
A woman is someone that likes to be pretty and think of themselves as a delicate creature.
I'm pretty indelicate.
Okay.
I could be a woman too.
Yes, you could.
Defining womanhood is just a project of someone who identifies as a woman.
Yeah, but what do they identify? You see what I'm saying? What do they identify as? They identify as a woman, but what is that?
I honestly don't know.
It's a simple question. So why is it so hard to answer? This is going to take some serious investigation. For all of human existence, women were understood to be a certain thing. So what changed? No one can seem to answer the question now. Over 2,000 surgeries and counting, Dr. Marcy Bowers is the nation's preeminent sex change surgeon. Surely someone who does sex change surgeries can answer what a woman is. Dr. Marcy Bowers, first of all, thanks for talking to us.
My pleasure.
So you're a world-renowned gynecologist and surgeon. You're also a transgender woman. Can you tell me a little bit about...
Well, I mean, I identify as a woman, but...
You're a woman, right?
I'm a woman with, I mean, that's my life, day to day, but I have a transgender history.
So one thing on your website, it says gender-affirmed, GAV, gender-affirming vaginoplasty. What is that exactly?
A vaginoplasty is creation of female, a female vagina and vulva. We're altering the physical characteristics of the individual to fit better with a gender identity that is female.
This is all constructed from the penis?
Yes, that's right. The surgeries are quite refined in the sense that they really, not only do they look like female anatomy, but they also function that way, for the most part. I mean, certainly it's a bit of a Faustian bargain. You know, it's not perfect.
Does anyone ever regret their surgeries? Or, well, we know they do, but how often do people regret their surgeries?
Well, actually, we don't know that they do. There are legitimate detransitioners, and there are people who truly feel that in their journey, they may have made a mistake. Now, fortunately, this is a really, really uncommon phenomenon.
I don't know if you've ever heard of people in the trans-abled community. These are people who are physically able-bodied but feel like they should be disabled or identify as such. For example, a man who has 2 arms but feels like he should have 1. If a man in this kind of marginalized community went to the doctor and said, I want to have my arm cut off, do you think that...
That doesn't have anything to do with gender identity.
Well, it's someone's self-identity, how someone identifies.
That's someone who has and I'll accept it as a mental diagnosis, a psychiatric condition. I don't even pretend to know what aptomenophilia is all about, but somehow it's the idea that you're fascinated or charmed by having a limb or part of a limb missing. Okay, I would say that's, pardon my non-medical language, kooky.
You don't see any? You think this is totally irrelevant?
Yep.
So the biggest, broadest question is, but what is a woman?
A woman is it's a combination of your physical attributes and then what you're showing to the world and the gender clues that you give. And hopefully those match your gender identity.
The critics on the other side of this, of this issue.
There aren't many, but go ahead.
There aren't many who would disagree with what you're saying about?
Well, the dinosaurs of the world are certainly out there. Yeah.
How long have you been running the shop here?
25 years.
Wow. Now, you had an incident here a little while ago that went really viral online. Lots of reaction in the public.
Aberdeen Councilwoman Tiesa Meskies confronted owner Don Suker about a sign he posted in his store.
One day I just put the sign up over here, and he came around the corner, and I thought, okay, I recognize him. I says, oh, I recognize you. You're our new city councilman. He says, no, I'm your new city councilwoman. So it was kind of on from there.
You know what? It's bullshit.
No, what you're spouting is bullshit.
No, it's not. Trans women are women, sir. That sign is bullshit.
I've been doing this 25 years. I've never had a problem with anybody, whether they're gay, transsexual, anything.
Now, you're saying councilman, this individual was saying, I'm a woman.
Right.
And you said you're not a woman. How do you know that person's not a woman?
How do I know?
Yeah.
Well, common sense.
Trans women are women!
Doesn't the science say that if someone identifies as a woman, then they are?
No. Now, that's completely bogus. I don't care if you think you're a sheepdog and you come into my store. It don't matter to me. Just don't come in and try to shove that shit down my throat.
If it makes someone feel better, what about their feelings?
I don't give a shit about their feelings. I'm old.
What about in the Star Wars universe? Jar Jar Binks, pansexual, do you think? Transgender?
Why would I even care?
If it's his truth.
Well, it ain't true.
You're not a scientist. You're not a gender studies major. Or are you?
No.
No? Okay. How do you know that you're a man?
How do I know that I'm? I guess because I got a dick.
Well, I guess Don isn't overthinking it. He admits he's not a gender studies major. Or at the very least, a doctor. Maybe I should go talk to one.
My name is Michelle Forcier, and I have a medical degree from University of Connecticut, residency, University of Utah Pediatrics, and I've worked for a number of different Planned Parenthoods for 20 years. I do advanced contraception and abortion, as well as gender hormones, and sort of looking at the whole sort of schema of gender, sex, and reproductive justice.
So you've done a lot of work in this field. Could you just start by telling us?
Sure.
At what age can a child first begin to transition into another gender or identify themselves as a gender different from how they were born?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's research and data that show that babies and infants understand differences in gender. Some children figure out their gender really early, and the reason why we say, oh, that's interesting or important is because they're figuring out their gender identity is not necessarily congruent with their sex assigned at birth.
When the doctor sees the penis and says, this is a male, has the sex of male, that's an arbitrary distinction?
Telling that family, based on that little penis, that your child is absolutely 100% male identified, no matter what else occurs in their life, that's not correct.
So what is gender affirmation care? You're a big proponent of. If we walk through, a child is sitting down with you, is questioning their gender. What's the gender affirmation process?
Affirmation means that as a pediatrician, as someone who says my job is to provide the best medical care for you, is I need to listen really carefully. And how I put it in words for kids so that they can understand it is, tell me your story. Where have you been in terms of your gender and your gender identity? Where are you right now? And more excitingly, where would you like to be in the future?
Have you ever met a 4-year-old who believes in Santa Claus?
Mm-hmm.
So this is someone who believes that a fat man is traveling through the sky on a flying reindeer at lightning speed, coming down his chimney with presents.
Yeah.
Would you say that this is someone who maybe has a tenuous grasp on reality?
They have an appropriate 4-year-old handle on the
Sure.
reality
Agreed.
that's very real for them.
Agreed. But Santa Claus is real for them, but
Yeah.
Santa Claus is not actually real.
Yeah, well, but Santa Claus does deliver their Christmas presents.
Well, yeah, but he's not real, though.
To that child, they are.
When I see a child who, believes in Santa Claus, and then let's say this is a boy and he says, I'm a girl.
Mm-hmm.
This is someone who can't distinguish between fantasy and reality, so how could you take that as a reality?
I would say that as a pediatrician and as a parent, I would say how wonderful my 4-year-old and their imagination is.
Aren't kids famous for their active imaginations? Should we really let our children define reality? If I say that I feel a certain way, then obviously you can't tell me I don't feel that way.
Yeah.
But just because I feel that way, does that mean that it's true?
I mean, if it's your reality.
Yeah, if it's your reality.
It's truly like none of my business who you
So we all have our own
identity.
realities? What if I said, I want you to say that it's true that I'm a woman? Would you say that?
Okay, you're a woman.
I would also say that.
If you want.
Yeah.
I honestly don't care. Like, whatever makes you happy.
What's true to you can be false to me. So like, it's like.
What if I said that it's true? My truth is that you don't exist. Does that mean you no longer exist?
I mean, if that's your truth, sure. I don't, because
But you do.
Well, I mean, if you're saying that I do, then I do.
Well, but even if I said that you don't, you still do, because we're having this conversation.
I mean, are we?
I think so. I mean, I thought...
That's what you think.
Well, I should have known it would be hard to define reality in Hollywood. I should probably look to the place where truth is the foremost pursuit, the American university.
What we do in gender studies is not just reduce gender to what psychologists might call individual differences, but rather thinking about gender. And that's not women and man, but gender as a social form, something that kind of infuses itself into virtually all aspects of social life.
Well, let's talk about that then. I guess we should start with, we've got gender and sex, right?
Yeah.
What's the difference between the two? Is there a difference?
I saw that in your questions and I thought, my goodness, this is what we spend an entire semester kind of thinking through. But what we tend to think about in the social sciences today is that sex refers to a set of biological characteristics and gender is a social construct or category. What I think is often misleading about that characterization is allowed to be sort of messy and complicated. But in that framing, when you split them up into these wholly discrete constructs, studies scholars, and really more specifically people who study gender and sex, we're not talking about sexuality right now. In the kind of academic universe that I travel in is that we see how deeply gendered ideas, cultural ideas about masculinity and femininity, maleness and femaleness, both in humans and in lots of other animals.
So are gender and sex two different things, or?
Well, I think that they both are and they aren't. I'm comfortable saying that gender and sex are two different constructs, but they're deeply intertwined with each other.
We're talking about gender and sex, and there's a lot of controversies there. If we're talking about a trans woman has all of the male physical characteristics, so would that not be a male then? Couldn't we plainly say, this person is a male?
Well, I guess it's like, why are you asking the question? I think I want to understand sort of why that's so important. So if someone tells you...
Just to sort of understand reality, you know?
Well, I mean, I think when someone tells you who they are, you should believe them. So if a person says that they're a woman or they're a man, then that's them telling you who their gender is. I'm not so sure what social interactions would have to do with maleness or femaleness that would
well, I'm not even talking about social context. I'm just trying to start by getting to the truth, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really uncomfortable with that language of like getting to the truth. Again, in social life.
Why is that uncomfortable?
Because it sounds actually deeply transphobic to me. And if you keep probing, we're gonna stop the interview.
If I probe about what the truth is?
You keep invoking the word truth, which is condescending and rude. I'm saying to you...
How is the word truth condescending and rude?
Why don't you tell me what your truth is, and you're walking on 30 seconds more of thin ice before I get up.
What my truth is? Well, I don't think I really have a truth. I think that there's just the truth, like the reality. And so we should begin by trying to figure out what the reality is.
Uh-huh. And why are you concerned with when someone else tells you that they're a man, or even if they use the word male, why are you concerned with not believing them?
Well, you keep bringing it back to, you know, how do you respond in a social situation? But,
that's what I do. I'm a social scientist.
Well, right, but we're in a university. This is a place of understanding truth, isn't it? Or
absolutely, we pursue truth, and I'm a social scientist, and that's what I do.
But you just said the truth is transphobic.
That you would say, that if you're saying the truth is that I get to say, you're not a man, show me your genitalia, that's transphobic.
No, I don't want to see anybody's genitalia. I just mean, someone can make a statement about themselves that could be untrue. Like, for example, if I were to say that I'm a black man, would you accept that, or would you be skeptical?
Are you black? Are you African American? Are you biracial?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, you don't look that, and I don't think it doesn't sound like that's a genuine statement of who you are.
Okay, so that's my point. I could make a statement about who I am that's incorrect.
Of course, I think it's well established that human beings can lie, yes.
Or not even lie. I mean, I could just be mistaken.
Yeah.
Sure where you're going. I guess this all comes back, this all comes down to really one question. Especially women, gender and sexuality studies. So what is a woman?
Why do you ask that question?
I just really like to know.
What do you think the answer to that question is?
Well, I'm asking. That's why I came to a college professor who's this is what you do.
What other kinds of answers have you gotten?
A lot of like this, where you're not answering, and I've gotten a lot of that. So
I think it's interesting that you say that some of the people you've interviewed have been reluctant to answer it, and I think that has a lot to do with the questions that preceded it, and the way that you've conducted yourself in the interview.
How have I conducted myself?
How do you think you've conducted yourself?
You just really don't want to answer the questions, do you?
I came today very willing and enthusiastic about answering questions about women and gender sexuality studies, which is the work that I do.
You wanted to answer questions about women's studies, and so shouldn't the first answer you should be able to provide is what exactly is a woman?
Well, for me, it's actually a really simple answer, and that's a person who identifies as a woman.
But what are they identifying as?
As a woman.
But what is that?
As a woman.
Do you know what a circular definition is?
I do.
It's sort of like what you're doing right now, where a woman is a woman.
Mm-hmm. Well, because you're seeking what we would call in my field of work an essentialist definition of gender. I think it sounds like you would like me to give you a set of biological or cultural characteristics that are associated with one gender or the other.
I'm not seeking any type of definition. I'm just seeking a definition.
Yeah, and I gave you one.
Well, now I can say I've been to college. Glad I didn't pay for it. Is there anyone willing to give me a straight answer? Ideally, somebody with a bunch of medical degrees on the wall. Dr. Grossman, thanks for talking to us. You're a psychiatrist, medical doctor, and you've done a lot of work in child psychiatry. What is transgenderism from a psychiatric standpoint?
The best way to approach it is by speaking about gender dysphoria, which is an intense loathing and discomfort with one's biological sex. They exist anywhere between 1 in 30,000 people and 1 in 110,000. It's important to distinguish those people from what's happening much more recently, which is kids that never had any discomfort or dysphoria, as it's now called, with their biological sex. And then quite suddenly, as preteens or as adolescents, they come out and they announce that they are gender fluid, or they start to question their sex. So first, let's define the terms, sex and gender.
Yes, please.
Sex is biology. Sex is unchanging. It's based on chromosomes. 99.999% of the cells in the body are marked either male or female. Gender, on the other hand, is a perception. It's a feeling. It's a way of identifying. It's an experience. Okay, that's subjective.
It sounds like what you're saying is that if a man is male but thinks of himself as a woman, he's not actually a woman?
That's correct.
Male gametes. That's what makes me male.
No, your sperm don't make you male.
Then what does?
It's a constellation.
In reality, in truth, okay?
Whose truth are we talking about?
The same truth that says we're sitting in this room right now, you and I.
No, you're not listening.
If I see a chicken laying eggs and I say that's a female chicken laying eggs, did I assign female, or am I just observing a physical reality that's happening in the world?
Does a chicken have gender identity? Does a chicken cry?
Well,
Does a chicken commit suicide? Let's
What does that have to do
frame
with-
it, because you're trying
A chicken has sex like any
a chicken
biological
has
organism.
an assigned gender, but a chicken doesn't have a gender identity.
So we assign female to chickens when they lay eggs?
We assume they're female if they lay eggs.
Now, I was told that really everyone agrees with the current approach to gender and transitioning kids and all of that. And if you don't agree, that you're a dinosaur and a bigot. So are you a bigoted dinosaur?
I'm not bigoted and I'm not a dinosaur. I am rooted in reality and in science.
Whose reality?
There's one reality.
The first race that I competed against a transgender athlete was during my freshman year. And once the gun went off, the two transgender athletes took off flying and left all of us girls in the dust. Throughout all 4 years of high school, I was forced to compete against biological males. I only competed against them in the sprinting events, but I raced against these athletes over a dozen times throughout the years, and every single time I lost.
Did they inch you out of medals that you would have won otherwise or trophies you would have
They
won?
beat me out by 20 meters out of medals, and qualifying spots, I missed out on qualifying for New England's. I had to go in the long jump and the 4x200 meter relay, so I was forced on the sidelines in my own event, and if they were not there, I would have been able to qualify. So I missed out on so much throughout my high school career.
Did they win all the events or almost all the events?
Between the two of them, they won every single event they competed in.
How does that feel?
It is so frustrating and heartbreaking because we elite female athletes train so hard to shave just fractions of a second off of our time. And going into races knowing that we will never be able to win.
Feels like all that work gone to waste?
It does. After so many losses, it just gets to the point of, why am I even doing this? Why am I keep training so hard and sacrificing so much just to place third and beyond?
Case in Connecticut, there were two male track runners.
They were trans girls.
Right, and who decided that they were going to race against the girls. And you look at those individuals, you look at their times against the men, against the boys, so they were kind of middle of the pack. And then they're racing the girls, and they're, first and second place. Is that indicative of some kind of unfair advantage that those individuals might have against the girls?
No, it's not indicative of an unfair advantage. And I think part of the proof of this is that more transgender girls are coming out in high school and still playing sports, and they're not winning. The Connecticut case is the exception. It got a lot of attention because those two trans girls performed well, but there are many, many more trans girls competing in sports, and they don't excel. Because at the end of the day, whether or not you win a game is about how hard you work in your practice, and most of us aren't going to win. And that goes for transgender athletes too.
Let's go, girls.
The norm is that transgender youth don't win that much in sports games.
Alana McLaughlin was very appreciative for Provost to take this fight. I don't know how appreciative is now, but she got a couple punches in.
It is very much the exception when a transgender young person does win.
And the tap!
And it's because there's not really an advantage to being trans. Only a few people are going to lead the pack. There are some slight differences, but does it translate to a competitive advantage? I think you'd be very hard-pressed to prove that. If there was a big advantage to being transgender in sports, then we would see transgender women totally dominate.
And over the last half of the pool, nobody will touch Leah Thomas.
I feel like a woman.
Transgender swimmer Leah Thomas breaking barriers and records. But in a new article, Sports Illustrated calls the college senior the most controversial athlete in America.
Leah obviously helps us do better, right? Leah's swimming really fast. Leah's performance helps the University of Pennsylvania swim team. The feeling of winning doesn't feel as good anymore because it feels tainted. There was a lot of things you couldn't talk about that were very concerning, like a locker room situation. If you even brought up concerns about it, you were transphobic. If you even bring up the fact that Leah swimming might not be fair, you were immediately shut down as being called a hateful person or transphobic.
But there's never any conversation. The coaches don't sit everyone down and acknowledge what everyone's really upset about.
So Penn actually brought in people high up in the athletic department to talk to us. They brought in someone from like the LGBTQ center. They brought in someone from the psychological services.
So you're upset about what's happening, and so you need psychological help.
Yeah. And they told us in this meeting, they said, look, we understand there's an array of emotions, but Leah's swimming is a non-negotiable. However, we can help you make that okay. That's what we're here for.
So you're anonymous for this interview. Why did you decide that you can't have your face out there saying these things?
They've made it pretty clear that if you speak up about it and you say anything negative, that like your life will be over in some way. Like you'll be blasted all over the internet as a transphobe if you come out, and then you'll never be able to get a job. Like anyone who wants to hire you will look you up and see you're transphobic and your life will be over.
Let's say that I identified as a woman tomorrow, and I wanted to go into the same locker room where you are. Should I be allowed to do that? As long as I identify that way?
I don't know. I just feel that other women would be uncomfortable by you walking in there.
Ella dice que qué tú piensas acerca de que los hombres que son transexuales usen baños de mujeres. ¿Tú crees que está bien?
No.
Pero dilo.
No, porque tiene que ver.
Controversy at a health club in Koreatown over the issue of gender.
That's right. Video of spa goers complaining was posted on social media.
I just want to be clear with you. It's okay for a man to go into the women's section, show his penis around the other women, young little girls underage. Your spa, we spa, condone that. Is that what you're saying? Like I asked. It's so he can stay there. He could stay there? What sexual orientation? I see a dick.
Police identified the person involved as 52-year-old Darren Morager of Riverside County. Morager, who has been a registered sex offender since 2006, now faces 5 felony counts of indecent exposure.
Hello, I'm Congressman Mark Takano. Trans Month of Visibility is a time to recognize the strength, diversity, and resiliency of the transgender community. Together, we can make our country and our world a more accepting place by speaking out against transphobia at the source and supporting the trans community by getting the Equality Act signed into law.
Congressman, thank you for being here. Thanks for joining us. You are the first member of Congress who's a member of the LGBT community and also a person of Asian descent. You're also a big proponent of the Equality Act.
Yes.
What is the Equality Act? If you were to just summarize it very briefly, I know it does a lot.
The most simplest way to talk about the Equality Act is that it simply amends the 1964 Civil Rights Act to include sexual orientation and gender identity. So public accommodations is one area.
What's a way that someone who's LGBT could be discriminated in public accommodations currently?
Currently, public accommodations is the whole area of, hotels and motels and...
Bathrooms and sports teams, is that...
I say bathrooms, sports teams, athletic events.
Let's get into more specific policy issues. There are some women who say, and I've talked to a few who say this, they say, hey, I'd like some privacy in the bathroom. I'd prefer not to encounter naked penises, frankly. They say even that the penis is a telltale sign that someone is a male. I mean, there are people who've kind of really bought into the rumor that only men have penises. How do we account for that? How do you respond to that?
Well, what I would say is that most transgender people that I know, and it's a very, I think, distinct minority of people. It is a very, I think, We're talking not about a lot of people. I think a person who wants to use a women's bathroom, who identifies as transgender, really does think of themselves as a female. So how we go about trying to, respect their basic right to live, I think will be an important part of this law. And
With the
bathrooms,
law.
well, wait a minute, bathrooms are, where you want to take this conversation instead of the basic right to just life is something that I'm kind of mystified that you're kind of not focusing on first, that we're going straight to the controversy over bathrooms. So, you know what? I think this interview is over.
Yeah.
I think this interview is over.
I just had one last question.
No, the interview's over.
We
Please
wanted to
turn
know
off the cameras.
what is a woman?
Please, just turn off the cameras.
Excuse me. So we're gonna end the interview. If you guys could please pack up and return the office exactly.
I just wanted to know.
Okay.
I came all this way to know what.
Thank you.
They're fair question. I just wanted to know what is a woman.
And you're not gonna find out.
My trip to California isn't providing many answers, but at least I'm making new friends. You worry about kids walking around out here?
No, because I raised two daughters. They're two of the most well-adjusted adults. They grew up around naked people, and there's been studies that have shown that children raised around non-sexual nudity actually have fewer hang-ups when they're adults.
People do have hang-ups. There's a lot of things hanging right now during this conversation. Can anyone be any gender they want to be? Can a man become a woman if he wants to be?
I leave that, I mean, what people do, that's personal choice. People can live the life they want to. I'm trying to live the life I want to, an authentic life, and
I can see
that's
that.
why I respect other people's rights and to choose what they want to do.
Well, why are you asking a gay man as to what it means to be a woman? You should be asking women what it means to be a woman, especially trans women, what it means to be a woman.
I'm asking all kinds of people. Can anyone have an opinion about it?
Only people who are women. Gay men don't know nothing about what it means to be a woman.
Have you told gay men here in San Francisco that they're not allowed to talk about this?
No. But it's not like I come around and say what a gay man is allowed to be.
So you're saying if you're not a woman, then you shouldn't have an opinion?
Where does a guy get a right to say what a woman is? Women only know what women are.
Are you a cat?
No.
Can you tell me what a cat is?
This is actually a genuine mistake. I am sorry I even came up here.
You want to tell us what a woman is? If my friend in the purple hat is correct, and only women can tell me what a woman is, I guess I need to go where the women are. What is a woman? Can you tell me that? Well, you're at the Women's March. You must have some idea. So, I see girls, vagina. Does that mean that they're the only people who can get pregnant?
If men can get pregnant too, I think they'd want the right to choose.
But men can get pregnant?
We're saying someone who was born as a woman but identifies as a man. That
a man?
real man.
It's a real man.
Yeah.
So men can get pregnant.
Yes, if we're saying yes.
If they have the parts to do so.
Is it just women that give birth, or is it?
Or I guess, yeah.
So men can give birth too?
Anyone with a vagina.
But that could be a man or a woman.
Well, I mean, I think that's the whole point, right? That it's fluid. The way that we define these things changes a lot.
What are you doing here?
I'm asking these questions.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out what a woman is. That's why I'm here. And this is the Women's March. I figured this is a good place to find out. I've come all this way to ask that question. Can anyone tell me what a woman is?
You are not here for women. We ask you to leave.
What is that? How am I harassing? I'm asking a question.
Our bodies, our choice.
Whose body?
Our bodies, our choice. Our bodies, our choice.
What is a woman? Can anyone here at the Women's March tell me what a woman is? How about you tell me what a woman is and I'll put a mask on? Sir, tell me what a woman is and I'll put a mask on. Please, if one person could tell me what a woman is. Do you guys know what a woman is by any chance?
No idea.
I've been all over America. I still can't find an answer. Maybe I'm looking too close to home. We came a long way to come and talk to you guys, thousands of miles from America. So thank you for inviting us into your tribe, first of all.
I can say it is my pleasure to meet you and feel most welcome. But you're here to learn with me. I'm here to learn with you too.
Great. What's the right form here?
It's just
with the elbow?
Yeah.
I mean, they're laughing, so I guess it's not good, but I thought it was pretty good. Not good enough to be a man yet in your tribe, but what does a man do? What are his roles within the tribe?
At the role of a man, you need to work for your woman. Secondly, to have children. If you have children and you don't have something to feed them, you are not still a man.
There you go. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the blood.
This is the best raw kidney I've had in my life. What if a man decides that he wants to do the roles of a woman?
Kidogro orna yende hikunya lele aines ndogringengro. In Maasai community, it will not exist at all.
Doesn't exist? What if a man decides that his gender identity is woman?
Kidogro orna yende le nega wanana ingro. A woman has its own duty, and a man has its own duty, and a lady cannot do the duty of a man, and a man cannot do a duty of a woman.
Can a man become a woman?
No.
No?
No.
What about a transgender? Transgender?
No.
No?
It will look like if you want to become a lady but you're a man, you have something wrong in your mind. Something wrong in your family, something wrong in you.
What about if someone was non-binary?
Come again?
Non-binary? Do you know, like non... Like someone is...
You're not a woman, you're not a man.
Yeah, someone is neither. They're something else. Is that...
He's saying we have never seen things like those. For a man, he has a penis. For a woman, he has a vagina. So we know this is a lady, this is a man.
What if it's a woman with a... What if it's a woman with a penis?
Both.
Is that...
and tabo.
People are laughing. Is that a dumb question?
They're just laughing because they have never heard something like that. This is their first time to hear.
Never heard it before.
A woman have a penis, and she is a woman.
In my country, I can't go a day without hearing it. We hear it every day. So in my country, sometimes you'll hear people say, a man will say that I'm a woman trapped in a man's body. And so they say that I have a woman trapped inside me.
They want to know a woman has the breast.
Breast, yeah.
Secondly, she has a vagina.
Vagina.
And the question is, does this man deliver?
Does he deliver babies? No, not as far as I know.
The question is, let's say if you want to sleep a woman, definitely you'll do sex.
Sex with a woman, yeah.
And you the vagina, is it? But for the man, where do you He asked that question.
I don't know all the logistics of it. Based on what I'm saying, would you ever want to move to America?
They say no, never.
What is a woman, if you had to give it a definition?
She's saying a woman delivered, a man cannot.
So it sounds like you don't spend a lot of time thinking about gender. You just kind of live your lives. You don't think much about it.
He said no, because we believe that's a God plan.
God's plan?
He's saying that I'm shocked on what you are telling me.
He's shocked.
Yeah.
The Maasai people don't think much about gender, but they have a firm sense of their identity. It's clear that gender ideology is a uniquely Western phenomenon. So where did all this come from? Who came up with it? And why?
Matt, I want to show this to you. You're a parent, right? Okay? It's perfectly normal for 10 years and up. Here's just one page I want you to see here.
For 10 and up, huh?
It's unspeakable what these people have done to our children.
When did that start? When was it decided that we need to start teaching kids about this stuff at such a young age?
So I'll answer that with one word: Kinsey. Kinsey was a social reformer. He wanted to rid society of Judeo-Christian values when it came to sexuality. And he worked very hard to do that, and I would say he succeeded.
Kinsey would be very happy with our culture today. His idea was that children are sexual from birth, that we're all inherently sexual creatures from cradle to grave. He believed that true happiness is found in a life of perverse sexual experimentation, no matter the age.
What came out is that his research was fraudulent.
Kinsey based his fraudulent conclusions on data he collected from convicted sex offenders and child molesters. His research was conducted in prisons, not everyday America. He also performed horrific sexual experiments on children, some under the age of 1. His most influential book, Sexual Behavior in the Human Male, contains an infamous chart called Table 34, which documents the orgasms of very young kids, including babies as young as 5 months old. But instead of suffering the consequences for his heinous actions, he was and still is celebrated by academia and Hollywood. His ideas form the foundation for sexual education in public schools today. How do we get from this to you can choose your own gender?
Okay, well, now we have another very important character, and his name was John Money.
John Money was a psychologist and professor at Johns Hopkins University. Gender ideology was his brainchild. In fact, he coined the terms gender identity and gender roles. And according to Money, babies are gender neutral at birth, and ultimately environment determines whether a person is a man or a woman.
Money was telling the world about his theory that a boy could be raised as a girl, and do just fine, and vice versa.
And so Money tried out his theory on two young twin boys, the Reimer twins.
When the twins were 8 months old and they went to be circumcised, the first twin, whose name was Bruce, something went wrong with the machinery and his penis was burnt off. They stopped and didn't do a second circumcision on the other twin, as you might imagine. And the parents, of course, didn't know what to do. How are they going to raise this child?
John Money convinced Bruce's parents to transition him into a girl. Money also conducted sexually abusive experiments on the twins throughout their childhood, including forcing them to simulate sex acts on each other.
He reported up to the age of 10 that this was a complete success. Well, wasn't true.
The results were a disaster. Bruce could never fully accept his female identity. Eventually, his parents told him the truth, and he chose to transition back to a boy, taking the name David. As an adult, David spoke out about the abuse and the damage done to him by John Money.
The girls would do their things with their Barbies and things like that, and that wouldn't interest me. And things such as trucks and building forts and, getting to the odd fist fight and climbing trees, that's the kind of stuff that I like, but it was unacceptable, so I'd never...
As a girl?
As a girl, I had no place to fit in.
The trauma that he and his brother and his entire family went through left deep scars. His brother died of an overdose when he was 38, and then David committed suicide.
There was never a retraction or an apology from John Money. Instead, his ideas were adopted by mainstream psychology, and they form the basis of gender ideology today. Why don't more people know about John Money and Alfred Kinsey?
Evidently, there are forces that don't want this information out.
I never fit. I was an alpha female, a sales executive that kind of just didn't fit in any box. When psychologists or somebody that I was in love with or whatever said that I was in the wrong body, I started to think, well, maybe I am. I'm a biological woman that medically transitioned to appear like a male through synthetic hormones and surgery. I will never be a man. Is it transphobic for me to tell the truth? Why is it that a couple hundred years from now, if you dug up my body, they're gonna go, yeah, that was a woman, had babies.
Can you tell me about the procedures that you had?
I've had 7 surgeries. I've had 1 stress heart attack. I've had a helicopter life ride with a pulmonary embolism. I've had 17 rounds of antibiotics. I had 6 inches of hair on the inside of my urethra for 17 months. Nobody would help me, including the doctor that did this to me because I lost my insurance. I get infections every 3 to 4 months. I'm probably not gonna live very long.
Was there any real discussion of the risks and the side effects and...
No, there's not. And I know that people want to think that there is, but there's not. The truth is that medical transition is experimental. We have studies that said that medical transition helps mental health with kids. They've all been retracted, modified, changed. But the only long-term study tells us 7 to 10 years is when transgender people are the most suicidal.
After?
After surgery. But that's transphobic to say. For the first time in history, a marginalized group has a huge dollar sign on the top of their head. We have 5 children's hospitals in the United States promoting that.
What?
That's a phalloplasty. That's a bottom surgery. We have 5 children's hospitals in the United States telling girls that they can be boys at $70,000 a pop in a surgery that has a 67% complication rate. That will kill me from infection that I can't sue on. We're butchering a generation of children because nobody's willing to talk about anything. I have 3 kids. at the age that they're doing this to kids. I'm not transphobic. I love my kids, and I love other people's kids, and you should too. This is wrong on so many levels.
Can kids consent? Do you think kids are capable of consenting to this?
No, they're not. Being a parent is loving the hell out of your kids and helping them see around corners.
What's the youngest patient that you've operated on?
The youngest patient I've done vaginoplasty on is age 16.
Do you worry that minors just don't understand enough about themselves? They're not neurologically developed enough yet to make permanent life-altering decisions?
Absolutely not.
A young person's self-perception, one day they may be clear, the next day they may be totally confused and not sure, and you're affirming it with hormones that have never been used in this way in the field of medicine.
You're talking about puberty blockers?
Blockers and then opposite sex hormones.
At what age does the medical transition begin with medication?
So medical affirmation begins when the patient says they're ready for it. So that could be a kiddo who is just starting puberty and panicking because they're getting breast buds or their penis is getting bigger and busier and they're worried about all kinds of masculine changes. And that way, puberty blockers, which are completely reversible and don't have permanent effects, are wonderful because we can put that pause on puberty. Just like if you were listening to music, you put the pause on and we stop the blockers and puberty would go right back to where it was. The next note in the song just delayed that period of time.
You can just pause puberty.
No, you can't.
And then pick it up?
No, you can't.
In the future?
No, you can't. How many studies do they have, long-term studies, on hormone blockers with children? None.
I just spoke a month or two ago with a mother whose 14-year-old daughter was put on blockers. They discovered after 2 years, this 14-year-old girl has osteoporosis. That's something that like old women get.
How can doctors assure parents that a certain medicine is totally safe if, based on what you're saying, they can't possibly know that?
How can they be removing the healthy breasts of 15-year-old girls? How can they be sterilizing kids? How can this whole thing be happening, Matt?
Every child that they convince is transgender and in need of medical transition, it generates $1.3 million to pharma. And we're believing a pharmaceutical company, Lupron, hormone blockers, reversible, so they say. Well, the truth is that in 2003, Lupron was sued and deemed a criminal enterprise by the US government. They paid the most fine of any pharmaceutical company at that time, $874 million, wrote a check.
Is Lupron chemical castration?
Yes. We're giving it to pedophiles, aren't we? We're giving it to people that are dying, and we're giving it to kids, telling them that they were born in the wrong body and it's completely safe.
One of the drugs used is Lupron, right? Which has actually been used to chemically castrate sex offenders?
You know what? I'm not sure that we should continue with this interview because it seems like it's going in a particular direction.
Well, you're a medical professional.
I am a medical professional.
So you don't want to talk about the drugs that you give to kids, or?
Again, I'm a physician and I use medication. You're choosing exploitive words. Drugs I give to kids.
I'm choosing a
chemical
word
castration.
that was in a dictionary.
That's not a correct term for puberty blocking.
I could like look it up on my phone, but I'm pretty sure if I looked it up, like,
You can look it up on your phone.
it says medical definition: the administration of a drug to bring about a marked reduction in the body's production of androgens and especially testosterone.
And I'm saying, as a pediatrician who takes care of hundreds of these kids, when you use that terminology, you are being malignant and harmful.
I mean, there are some who would say that giving chemical castration drugs to kids is malignant and harmful.
It's about the context of caring for a child and seeing the suffering that kids can have that have not been in affirmative home situations.
What do you say to the claim that, well, we have to do this for these kids because if we don't, they'll kill themselves. They'll that they'll resort to drugs and self-harm.
A lot of them were hurting themselves. A lot of them were suicidal before they even discovered gender. That is never part of the discussion. And they say, what would you rather have? A living daughter or a dead son? If this is what the professionals are saying, it's terrible emotional blackmail.
Hello?
Hey, is this?
This is, yes.
Hey, it's Matt Walsh. Where are you right now?
I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada right now.
Are you able to leave?
I'm not able to leave BC. I can't even go to another province in Canada right now. And it's because I'm technically out on bail.
What happened exactly? How exactly did this get into the courts to begin with?
Right, so what happened is we set up a meeting with BC Children's Hospital. And according to the BC Children's Hospital website, there's going to be a thorough evaluation, and I'm thinking, good, this is going to be the end of it all. They're going to clearly see that my child is not the opposite sex. So my ex-wife brings my child into BC Children's Hospital. I get a call less than an hour into that appointment is that they were going to pump her full of cross-sex hormones within the hour. And I put a halt to that. I said, no. They agreed to stop for the moment. They figured, well, let's get the dad on board too. This is all going to be better. Let's just get everybody on the same page. I said, it's not going to happen. So I get a letter from BC Children's Hospital in December of 2018, and it says that under the BC Infants Act, they will start injecting my child with cross-sex hormones, and I have 2 weeks to respond with legal action if I so choose. And so that's how I ended up in court, because I did respond with legal action.
So you called your daughter a she, and you went to jail for that?
It's considered criminal violence to not use the preferred pronouns. It is no different than, let's say, I were to take a broomstick and whack one of my kids over the head. So they were treating it in a similar fashion, that misgendering, mispronouncing my child was the equivalent of family violence.
Is she on the hormone pills now?
She is. The court ordered that she could do whatever she wanted.
2010 until, I would say, 2016, I would say 80% of my clients were trans youth. Now it is, you identify, you take hormones, you do surgery. There isn't any other pathways.
So if you have two parents, one parent wants to affirm the trans identity, the other parent doesn't, who wins that battle?
The one who wants to affirm.
Every time?
Every single time. The goal is to get the parents to affirm the kid.
There's no such thing as a gender-affirming therapist. That's a contradiction in terms.
Why?
Because you don't affirm if you're a therapist. It's not your business to affirm. You come to see me because there's something wrong. Maybe you come to see me because a destructive element of you is wreaking havoc in your life. I'm on the side of the part of you that wants to aim up, man. That's what I'm on the side of. Okay, now I don't know what that means in your case, but we're gonna talk about it. Am I gonna affirm what you think? No, it's not up to me to affirm it. You don't get a casual pat on the back from a therapist for your pre-existing axiomatic conclusions. That's not therapy. That's a rubber stamp.
Is anybody at any point explaining to these kids the real long-term consequences of hormones and puberty blockers?
I don't think they're explaining it to the kids, so that has frightened me, that it's become, that we're even talking to the kids about it at 10. We're presenting it in schools.
So this generation, they're the lab rats.
Biological sex, binary. It's been binary for like 100 million years, longer than that. Temperament is not binary, temperament or personality.
So that's gender. Temperament is gender?
Well, gender is not a good word because it's vague and it isn't measurable.
So do we need it? Why can't we just say temperament? What do we even need the word gender for?
Well, I don't need it.
Yeah.
But what I would say is that people who talk about the diversity in gender are actually talking about diversity in personality and temperament, but they don't know it. You can have a masculine temperament if you're a woman. Maybe 1 in 10 women have the average temperament of a man. And you can have feminine men. temperamentally. And it's not that uncommon because the differences between men and women temperamentally aren't that great. There are masculine girls, there are feminine boys. What are we gonna do about that? Carve them up?
You as someone who started your professional life, you know, transgender care.
Yeah.
Now you're sitting here talking to me. And I'm a dangerous man, I've been told.
Mm-hmm.
Are you worried about reprisals? Are you worried about how this is gonna play among your professional peers?
I am worried that I can't have conversations with any other peers. I don't know any other peer that will speak to me around these things that question it. I just don't think developmentally this is helpful to our children.
You step wrong as a therapist, you say the wrong thing once and like your bloody career is over. And now it's the same with physicians. How's that gonna work? You're gonna go have an honest conversation with your physician when he's terrified out of his mind that he'll say something politically incorrect during the diagnostic process? Hey man, you're sick with whatever you wanna be. See you later. You want a prescription for something?
I left academia because the climate had become too stifling politically, especially when it comes to the topic of gender identity and the science of gender. It is absolutely impossible to do good research. You basically have to decide beforehand what you're going to find so that you don't upset activists, and that is not how you do science.
Why has this shift occurred where all of a sudden gender and sex have become so politically and culturally charged?
There's a really ugly history between sex researchers and transgender activists. In the past, if any sex researcher spoke out about science that went against activist orthodoxy or particular narratives that activists wanted to promote, they would basically have their personal and professional reputations ruined. So what you see is that only experts who toe the party line and say the things that activists like, those are the people who get attention, those are the people who get lifted up in the media. And also, I would say people are incentivized to go along with the activist narratives and gender ideology because that helps their career.
Trans is very cool. Trans is a way of giving yourself value, given the way society at the moment is functioning. All of the things that used to give us anchors of identity have become very fluid or very volatile in recent years. And into that context, I think what you find then is new identities start to fill the void or the vacuum. Whereas in the past, I might have got my sense of self-worth from being part of the village where I grew up. Now I might get my sense of self-worth through being part of the online community that I connect with, or part of the sexual identity community.
So now we are seeing kids that are identifying as animals going to school, and they are purring instead of answering questions, and they meow, and the teachers are not allowed to question it because it's considered a queer identity.
So you have kids that are going to school and they're saying, I'm a cat. Mm-hmm. And the teachers have to affirm them as a cat.
Yes, so it's
the
not
schools
just
are
the
like
young ones.
literal zoos now, basically.
They are.
I am a 27-year-old transgender woman. I am a wolf-therian and a member of the furry fandom.
When and how did you discover this inner wolfness?
Probably around age 10 or 11. I was watching an anime about wolves and see the wolf running across the screen, and I'm somehow just intrinsically like, oh, that's me.
Have you spent any time around biological wolves?
Yes.
That sounds dangerous also. What context are you?
So I was a volunteer with a preserve, and I've also visited many wolf preserves.
Are you able to communicate with the wolves?
Am I going to have a conversation with a wolf in the way that I'm communicating you and I? Obviously not. Am I going to read their body language, respond appropriately to their behaviors and their nonverbal cues? Yes.
Would you be able to give us an example of this wolf communication?
No. I'm not comfortable doing so.
Okay, all right. How exactly have these ideas become so pervasive?
First of all, I think we need to remember that in the West, at least, we have it drilled into our minds from childhood onwards that personal happiness is the key to individual flourishing. Secondly, we think of ourselves in psychological terms. I am my feelings. And in order for me to be happy, I have to be able to express my feelings. I have to be outwardly that which I feel myself to be inwardly. Thirdly, we're taught that interfering with somebody else's happiness is very bad. We need to acknowledge that there are powerful lobby groups, powerful cultural and political lobby groups driving this thing. Hollywood is pressing LGBTQ plus matters in so many movies. We're seeing it in the way Amazon sets up its algorithms. There are all kinds of factors in society that are pushing what would really be numerically a fairly minority interest into being one of the main political focal points of this generation.
After my operation, I will be a woman.
Why can't she just be a lesbian?
Because she's not a lesbian, Mom. She's a boy.
Because I was born in a girl's body.
Can I ask you a question? Why don't you kiss me?
The whole idea of social contagion, that there could be something in one's social environment that could play some role in somebody coming out identifying as trans, would you say that that is definitely part of your story?
When I look back, I don't think I would have ever even considered seeing myself as a boy without these social aspects, especially if I hadn't joined these online communities.
I identify as non-binary. I'll officially be changing my pronouns to they, them.
My pronouns are he, him, and demon, demon self.
I've been going by they, them pronouns for 4 years now. I'm pretty comfortable with it.
I use they, them pronouns.
There was literally a period of a few weeks to a few months. I started out as an ally, and then eventually I was starting to identify as transgender.
We are trans models.
So they go on the internet and they're told that all of their problems will be solved if they become a man.
Kids are being taught, you might feel like you're a boy, even if you have a vagina and you're a girl, you are what you feel you are.
Some people are girls, some are boys, some are both, some are neither. Gender is all about how we feel on the inside and how we express ourselves.
Ah, the gender fluid teacher. What do I go by in the classroom? I go by Teacher Fambrini.
As a queer and trans teacher, my agenda is to show little boys that they don't have to be like as stereotypically masculine, that they can like paint their nails and wear earrings and like still be a guy and like it can be cool.
So you worry that there could be a sort of social contagion element of this?
A teeny tiny bit, maybe.
Looking back on it, it was the same pattern, just kids who were really struggling, kids who were very alone and isolated.
They have anxiety. They don't fit in with their peers. They don't know where they belong.
Maybe they didn't have a welcoming family life. They just got caught up in these communities online.
Then they discover, hey, there's this group of people, and they also don't fit in. They're different. They're not sure who they are. Gee, that's where I fit in.
Today is the day before my top surgery. I am waking up tomorrow at 5 a.m. to have a subcutaneous mastectomy.
We're telling children when they haven't fully developed that all you have to do is medically transition and you fit in. I was one of those kids. It got me at 42. Your child doesn't have a chance.
Trans rights. This is only going in one direction. You will respect us.
As parents come to understand more about gender identity, kids are coming out at younger ages.
It's exciting. And you know who gets it right? Is this next generation.
The next generation who's already telling us that our antiquated ideas of things have to be a certain way just don't apply to them.
They're rejecting a lot of our social mores. They're tweaking the system.
I just don't think it's realistic to put this decision on them that is basically saying, are you okay with the risk of permanent health effects that you can never ever reverse? How can you ask that of such a small child?
I'm a physician and I use medication.
Certainly it's a bit of a Faustian bargain.
Puberty blockers, which are completely reversible.
You keep invoking the word truth, which is condescending and rude.
Some women have penises, right? Some men have vaginas.
Does a chicken cry? Does a chicken commit suicide?
I'm not a woman, so I can't really answer that.
I guess because I got a dick.
Well, I cared because my government decided that I had to call people by the terms. No, I'm not doing that. I don't care what your reason is. You don't get control of my tongue.
We live in a climate now in which no one seems to care about the safety of women and girls who are going through a very developmentally challenging time in their lives. They may not want to share spaces with their male peers. I would not be surprised in a few years, there will no longer be women's sports. It will literally be men's sports and transgender sports.
The question being asked by the trans person is a legitimate one. How can I be happy? The answer being given by having my body transformed to look like the other gender, by having myself pumped full of hormones, clearly isn't working. And we have to find a better and the more humane way of dealing with individuals who are struggling with gender dysphoria.
I have the utmost compassion for people who suffer from gender dysphoria. It's a nightmare for them and their families.
The vast majority, up to 90% of kids, if they go through a normal puberty, they're gonna be okay. They will be at peace with their bodies, and they will have avoided dangerous and experimental medical interventions and surgeries.
Maybe we're up against a battle here, up against a hill that perhaps, we're not gonna necessarily win today, but if we don't pave the way for a win, we'll never get there.
So we're going on this journey. Boys can be girls, girls can be boys, men can be women, women can be men. It makes me wonder, what is a woman?
What is a woman? A woman is someone who claims that as their identity. It could be many things to many people.
I think the question really brings up the fact that it is pretty relative, right? That if you ask women across race, across identities, across class, across culture, you will get a different answer.
Some of it is, based on biology. Some of it is based on hormones. Some of it is based on what you wear and how you present yourself.
A woman is not anything in particular. There's no one particular thing.
There is not one particular thing.
A woman is someone who says that she is a woman and transitions to be a woman.
Who says that she's what? Can you define the word woman without using the word woman?
That's actually kind of like, it's a curious question, but
We've been journeying across the country asking people this question, and almost nobody can answer it.
What is a woman?
What is a woman?
Marry one and find out.
So I should go home and ask my wife, I guess.
Yeah.
Hey, I've been meaning to ask you something.
Uh-huh.
What is a woman?
An adult human female who needs help opening this.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition? No.
Yeah.
I can't.
You can't?
Not in this context. I'm not a biologist.
The meaning of the word woman is so unclear and controversial that you can't give me a definition?
Senator, in my work as a judge, what I do is I address disputes. If there's a dispute about a definition, people make arguments, and I look at the law and I decide. So I'm not.
The fact that you can't give me a straight answer about something as fundamental as what a woman is underscores the dangers of the kind of progressive education that we are hearing about. Just last week, an entire generation of young girls watched as our taxpayer-funded institutions permitted a biological man to compete and beat a biological woman in the NCAA swimming championships. What message do you think this sends to girls who aspire to compete and win in sports at the highest levels?
Senator, I'm not sure what message that sends. If you're asking me about the legal issues related to it, those are topics that are being hotly discussed, as you say, and could come to the court.
Hey, so as we could see, he was on point. he was going to all of these different people. And one thing I credit him on is clearly, if you've seen some of his previous videos or heard him talk about the subject, you know where he stands, right? But even with that being said, the way he questioned the individuals, right? He had unbiased and objective questioning. The only time you could get a sense of where he stood was when he would ask a question and they couldn't answer it, or he would ask a question and then they would dance around the question and then basically accuse him or attack him of having an agenda, and then he would then respond accordingly, right? But the way he conducted himself in all of those interviews, he kept his cool. He didn't raise his voice. You know what I'm saying? Like, much props. Big shout out to him. It blew me away. Some of the responses that he got, like the doctor who was doing all of the sex changes. That dude was a trans dude. So you this is crazy. So let me get this straight. So you have an identity crisis. You identify as a woman, even though you're a man. You grow up, you transition, you go to medical school, and then you specialize in being able to make other people like you. So you got a degree, you got into a profession where you literally can surgically castrate individuals. And then you contradict yourself with the questioning. I can't remember exactly what he asked, but he was basically giving him an analogy saying, I think it was something like, oh, yeah. So it was like, if I'm an individual who identifies as feeling as though I only need one limb. Like if I have two arms, I want to cut one off, right? And I come to you as my doctor, would you cut my arm off so that I can feel like who I feel like inside, so I can be who I feel like inside? And so the doctor was like, no, that's crazy. He's like, I would even go so far as to say he's like a kook or a wacko or something, he said. And I'm like, that's literally what you do. That's literally what you do for a living. That's literally what y'all do. You say, I am a man, but I feel like I'm a woman. I identify as a woman, and you cut your snipper off. You're castrating yourself because you want to be a woman. And whoever did that to you, first off, the first wrong person was whoever told you that thought process, that mindset was okay. But even fast forward and past all the yeses that you got, whoever that doctor was that performed that surgery when you should be discredited, disbarred, whatever, medical license revoked, all of that. It's crazy. And here's the thing. This is how delusional it is. they would answer a certain question a certain way and see no error in the way they answered the question, not knowing that the way they answered the question literally applied to themselves. That's like me talking about obesity in America. And I'm like, yeah, too many people are obese, right? And I'm like, yeah, that makes no sense. Something's wrong with those guys. They just keep eating and eating and eating and eating and eating. They're getting fatter and fatter and fatter and fatter and fatter. Bruh, did I not look into a mirror? Do I got not a dad bod right now? You feel me? So if somebody asks me a question about weight and I answered accordingly, even though that the line of questioning wasn't talking about me, I can't sit there and go in on fat people when I got some relation to them. You feel me? It's crazy. Like the amount the psychiatrists, man, listen, I saw some predators in this video. I saw some predators, and I can't say it nowhere else. I can't explain it no other way. I saw some predators in this video. The line of questioning, that's why he kept going back to the same psychiatrist or pediatrician, whatever she was. I don't even know if it was a she. Now I'm watching the video. It might have been, I don't know. But she was avoiding questions. She was trying to give all of these terminologies for stuff, saying that what defines gender is whatever makes the individual happy and all kind of stuff. I was like, wow. It's hard to be lost in this world, right? And I'm not trying to knock mental health or therapy or psychologists or psychiatrists. I understand that, some people have issues that they need help working through, right? But it's very, very dangerous and toxic when these mental health professionals are encouraging and enabling this type of behavior. And they're not helping these individuals get better. They're actually giving them a stamp of approval, and they're encouraging them to go and seek these different solutions that are not solutions. And then that's combined with all of these politicians who get behind this movement and all of these individuals in power that's trying to pass laws and stuff like that. And then it goes to the healthcare industry. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Me personally, right? Obviously, if you don't adhere to what's in the scriptures, then you already know where that's going. But as a man, right? The religion and theology aside, as a man, whatever you choose to do with your body is on you. But when you try to tell me that I should accept whatever you feel or whatever you identify as, that's when I have my first issue. My second issue is when society tries to tell me that since I do not agree with your logic, which I wouldn't even call it logic because it's not logic at all. But if I don't agree with your viewpoint, then I'm wrong. I'm a bigot. I'm a dinosaur. I'm a traditionalist. I'm a Pharisee, and all these other negative connotations. And the biggest one, my biggest viewpoint against it is I'm a dad, man. I'm a father. Ain't no way y'all gonna sit here and try to tell my kids that it's okay to do those types of things, or it's okay to, if you want to be a girl, even though you were born a boy, and vice versa. Or if you see other individuals out and about in your life that decided to do those types of things, that you're supposed to accept them and call them whatever pronoun they're supposed to go by. Listen, my kids know the Most High made each one of them whatever sex that they was born as. And so from the school system to media to political laws and viewpoints, anything in regards to society, We should not be endorsing this. What you do is what you do is what you do. How you feel, I can't knock how you feel, right? But the fact that you feel doesn't make it fact. My wife tells me that all the time. You might feel a certain way, that doesn't make it fact. Because you was born with certain parts. Your genetic and biological makeup is a certain way. You can't change that. Because if you were meant to be a woman, you would have been born a woman. If you was meant to be a man, you would have been born a man. And that goes for this non-binary thing too. You just say, all right, I'm neither. Don't address me as neither. I can do whatever I want to do. I want to be whatever. It's confusion. It's a spirit of confusion. But with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like I said again, like, share, comment, subscribe. Let's get this out to the masses, man. Big shout out to Matt Walsh. Check out his movie and spread his movie. What is a Woman? I think we need to have these hard, controversial, painful conversations sometimes. I think it's healthy. I think it pushes the needle. I think that it stimulates thought. You know, it stimulates dialogue, much needed dialogue that we need to have to make, I won't even say to make this world a better place. I would say to just hold on to some of the things that we still have. They're trying to take and change everything. But you guys be safe out there. And as always, shalom.
Set apart swagger, yeah, we keep it holy. Times of the essence, ain't talking about a rollie. Heads on the swivel, always on alert. Mistakes that get you killed, got them sweating through their shirt. Amazing what you have when you working as a team. Everybody as a unit.